spin, 10 points, 360-degree horizontal angle rotation of the boat at a 0 to 45-degree vertical angle.
Doing a spin on a wave. Make sure you start at the top of the foam pile, and as you start coming down the face, keep the boat as flat as possible to the green water, lock your eyes on some object upstream, do a back sweep stroke to bring you the first 180 degrees, and then do a forward sweep stroke to do the last 180, and make sure you do a full 360 spin to make sure it scores.
In a hole, sit yourself sideways into the feature. You want to have a little bit of edge on downstream, eyes fixed upstream. Use a little backstroke and that will start to spin you around. Keep your upstream edge, your upstream knee lifted slightly so the water keeps on flowing underneath your boat rather than catching it. Then what you want to do at that point where you can't look upstream any further, switch your head around. At the same time you're going to change your edge so you don't catch your upstream edge. And then you're going to bring that boat around back so you're facing back to where you started. If the spin's working really well and you've got your head rotation right and your shoulders turning at the right stage, what you might be able to find is that you can do the spin without using your paddles for half of the move. So do the first half and then take the paddles out and let your head rotation bring your boat round for the second half. Or sometimes you can even manage to do the whole move without any use of the paddles, and this is called a super clean spin.
Tips to make sure it scores is make sure you finish the rotation. If you do 350 degrees, the judges won't give you the move. So make sure you at least do 360 and probably even go a little bit further to make sure it scores. A roundhouse is worth 15 points and it's a 180-degree horizontal angle rotation on green water at a vertical angle between 0 and 45 degrees. It needs to be clear of the foam pile and the competitor needs to rotate around the bow of the boat, landing in a backwards position. The roundhouse is just a low-angled blunt. You start in a front surf and spin around to a back surf with a little bit of elevation. Now the key is you need to rotate around your feet, not your middle. To do a roundhouse, start at the top of the wave, point your boat at 45 degrees towards the shoulder, do a big forward stroke to drive yourself down the face. At the same time as you hit the shoulder, do an aggressive edge change and a backstroke to push your boat around and stamp down nice and hard with your feet. Hopefully this will give you a little bit of elevation and you'll land in a back surf. As you land, do a big backstroke to help keep you on the wave and stop you from catching any edges. So my tips for the move to make sure that you get it: big dynamic edge change, stamp down nice and hard with your feet as you throw the move, and make sure you put in a big landing stroke and keep looking upstream so you can spot your landing. A back roundhouse is worth 20 points and it's a 180-degree horizontal angle rotation on green water at a vertical angle between 0 and 45 degrees. Clear of the foam pile, where the competitor rotates around the stern of the boat, landing in a frontwards position. So what this means is you're starting backwards and you're doing an elevated spin in front of the green, rotating around just behind your hips, landing in a front surf. So to do a back roundhouse, get yourself to the top of the pile and spin around backwards. Point the boat slightly pointing towards one of the shoulders. Do a big left backstroke to get some speed down the pile. Dynamic edge change and a big right sweep stroke. The more of a dynamic edge change you put on, the more vertical the move will be. So my tips for the back roundhouse is make sure you're pointing towards the shoulder as you start. Nice big backstroke to get some speed going down. Big dynamic edge change, a good landing stroke to make sure you stay in the wave after you've finished.
The Shuvit. Value 5 points. 2 consecutive 180-degree horizontal angle rotations of the boat at a vertical angle between 0 and 45 degrees. Begin in a front surf position to back surf position, then return into the front surf position without a pause. The second rotation must be in the opposite direction of the first one, and the entire trick is completed with one blade remaining in the water during the whole action phase. Start in a front surf, you want to switch to a back surf and then straight back to the front surf and doing the whole thing using just one paddle blade. Do a full half a spin, then keep that paddle blade in that water and bring it straight back. So change direction, bring that boat straight back upstream, front surfing exactly where you started. So with the Shuvit, if you're on a wave, one of the key points that will help is to keep that boat as flat as you can, and that will allow it to spin loosely across the surface of the water. If you're in a hole, using a little bit of edge might help you.
A cartwheel is worth 30 points and it's 2 consecutive ends in the same rotational direction and both ends at a vertical angle between 45 and 100 degrees. A cartwheel is just a vertical spin.
The cartwheel. So keep your eyes upstream, fix your position, get set up nice and high on the pile or in a good position relative to the feature that you're in. Use the paddle to help you initiate that first end, and then what you want to do is you want to get into a good flow. Switching your head to help you keep that boat nice and stable. Try not to throw your body about, otherwise that creates a lot of pop and makes it a lot more difficult to control. If the cartwheels are going nice and smoothly, try and go without the paddles and look for those clean and super clean bonuses. To make sure that the cartwheel scores, both ends need to be over 45 degrees.
Doing a cartwheel, the first thing I think about is looking at something upstream. So I pick some object that is lined up perfectly for me, and I want to keep my eyes on that throughout all of the move. The next thing, make sure you have the right amount of edge and start the move between 11 and 1 o'clock. Keep your weight over the boat at all times. It's just like a spin really. So to make sure it scores, make sure it's vertical enough and that you finish the rotation. So do a full 360 degrees.
Splitwheel. Value is 40 points. It's 2 consecutive ends with a change of direction in between each, and both ends are at a vertical angle between 45 and 100 degrees. So the splitwheel is a vertical Shuvit. Exactly the same as you did on the Shuvit, but you want it over 45 degrees, so the boat needs to be on end. So some top tips for the splitwheel. Keep your eyes upstream, especially at the start, that really helps. You need to make sure that you're keeping that boat up at 45 degrees or more. And you need to make sure you get that full 180 degree rotation, so your boat needs to go from pointing straight upstream to pointing straight downstream and then all the way back again.
The most important thing to this move is keeping your head locked on that one position upstream and being very, very aggressive with slamming the back end down to finish the move. Make sure, if you want to score this move, that you go all the way to backwards before you split it, and make sure that it's vertical enough. A tricky woo. It's 3 consecutive 180 degree horizontal angle rotations. It begins with a split wheel, which is followed by a rotation on the stern at a vertical angle over 60 degrees in the same direction as the first rotation of the split wheel. The entire sequence is performed using one paddle blade only.
A tricky woo is a split wheel, which you then pause on the stern and bring around so you've got a third end. So it's 3 changes of directions, each with a 180 degree rotation in the middle, using just one paddle blade.
So with the tricky woo, the main thing to remember is as soon as you put that back end in for the split wheel, look over the shoulder so you're seeing where you want to put the bow again. Always look where you want to go. Make sure you slam the back end down forcefully enough and keep the ends all over 60 degrees. And make sure you only use one paddle blade.
So for me, the top tips with the tricky woo is when you do your first split wheel end, what you want to do is slightly over rotate that split wheel so that it grabs the green water and that helps bring the boat around for that final end. Then the key thing is you need to actually change your head around and look back upstream for that third end. That's really important. So once you've done your first split, where you've got your eyes upstream, then you want to switch and look over your opposite shoulder and get your eyes fixed back straight upstream again. The final thing that I find helps is you've got to try and keep that neutral body position. If you throw your body around a bit too much, you'll end up doing a back loop out of it, and then you won't be scoring that tricky woo quite as you need to.
Blunt. 40 points. 180 degree horizontal angle rotation on green water at a vertical angle greater than 45 degrees, clear of the foam pile, where the competitor rotates around the bow of the boat, landing in a backwards position. So what it basically means is you're going from forwards to backwards and getting the boat ideally vertical in between the two, and it's rotating around the front of the boat. With the blunt, the main thing is look upstream, big dynamic edge change, a little hop can often help as well, and start up nice and high when you begin the move. To make sure it lands and you don't catch any edges, do a big powerful backstroke as soon as you land.
Surf around and set up nice and high on that wave. Then you can use the shoulder to help you bounce off the outside edge. So you want to use the outside rail to initiate and create release. And then you're going to quickly switch edges, get that paddle in nice and close to the boat and push down on it, and that's going to whip the boat behind your head and bring it back down flat onto the wave. You need to be over 45 degrees. If you're under, you're going to get the roundhouse, so you're still going to get points. But if you can get it over 45 degrees, you're going to get into that blunt range. You need to be clear of the foam. You also need to have it rotating around the front of the bow of the boat, so make sure it's not just a cartwheel on the wave. Finally, the judges are going to be looking for you landing in a backwards position, so you need to complete the full 180 degree rotation. Don't rush from your blunt. Once you've done the move, just hold it there for a few seconds and make sure that the judges see that you've completed the full rotation. Backblunt, left and right, 70 points. A 180 degree horizontal angle rotation on green water at a vertical angle greater than 45 degrees, clear of the foam pile, where the competitor rotates around the stern of the boat, landing in a frontwards position. I like to do the backblunt as a flashback. So you start with a spin, which gives you momentum. So set up nice and high on the pile, get that spin going, and just as you're coming into the second half of the spin, what you want to do is you want to kind of bounce that boat, do a little ollie. Then what you want to do is whip that boat up and over your head. So look over your shoulder, look back upstream, and that boat will just whip round, and there you are, you've got a backblunt. Really important with the blunts and the back blunts is that you use a landing stroke. So as you land the move, you want to be using a retaining stroke to make sure that you stay on that feature and don't flish off.
My key points this move: start up nice and high in the wave, get plenty of speed coming down the face. Big backstroke to give you that first little kick. Change your edges very dynamically, and this will help the boat get the angle. Look over your shoulder, back upstream, exactly where you want to put the bow down. And then as soon as you land, put a big forward stroke to make sure you don't catch the edges and that you stay on the wave. One tip I find that sometimes helps: if you want to get the boat more vertical, when you're looking over your shoulder, don't just look straight around to upstream, look up at the clouds and then down to upstream, and this helps you get that extra little bit of verticality. A loop is worth 60 points, and it's a front flip initiated and finished between a horizontal angle of -20 degrees and 20 degrees, landing in the hole or in the wave. The loop is basically just a somersault. My key pointers for you here is stamp down nice and hard. Think like you're trying to hit the bottom usually. Imagine you're pushing a football under the water. The more you get under, the faster it'll shoot out. To get the height, you want to jump up nice and tall, so throw your arms up in the air if you can, and then as soon as you get to the highest point, tuck forwards and then open out again as snappily as you can, and this will kick your feet out in front of you. Make sure you keep it nice and straight. Everything that is smooth, you want to be squared up and looking upstream and keeping lined up with something the whole way through.
Set up nice and high on the pile. Use the momentum as you come down the face of the pile to help you initiate the move. You want to plug your bow of your boat into the oncoming water, and then what you want to do is you want to stand up and you want to jump up into the air. But you want to time it so that you can use the power and energy as the boat releases, and that's going to throw you really high into the air, and then you're going to tuck it like a somersault and kick it out, and that'll bring you back down flat.
Make sure you stamp down nice and hard, get as much of the boat under the water as possible so it shoots you high up in the air. Jump up with your arms and look up with your head. This will give you the height, and as soon as you get to the peak of the move, snap your body forwards and then open it out again as snappily as you can, and this will kick your feet out in front of you. Make sure you keep this move straight. The judges will be looking out for it very, very much.
Backloop, 70 points. A backflip initiated and finished between a horizontal angle of -20 and 20 degrees, landing in the hole or in the wave. Backloop is a back somersault, landing as straight as you can. With a backloop, you want to set up as high as you can on the feature. Try and keep yourself as straight as possible. So when we're doing forwards moves, we look at a point straight upstream. When we're doing this backwards move for the back somersault, pick a point straight downstream. As you're coming down towards the seam line, try and keep almost a neutral position. Initiate by leaning back fractionally just to kind of allow that boat to drive into the water. Then you want to tuck forwards as far as you can. You want to stay in that forward tuck position until the boat comes over vertical. Once that boat goes over vertical, you're then going to throw all your body weight backwards, but it's really key that you keep as straight as you can. And then you're going to tuck forwards again and you're going to push out, and that allows the boat to kind of come around underneath you and straighten up, and you can use your paddles then to keep it straight and make sure you finish that full 360 degree rotation. You'll be now looking straight back downstream again.
So the back loop, you want to get a little bit of speed going down the foam pile. As soon as the water catches the back end, lean forwards so it goes nice and deep. Then when you get to the vertical position and the water's sort of just hitting you in the back of the buoyancy aid, snap your body backwards and then forwards again in a sit-up position so that it's pulling your feet under the water. Then you can use the back of your blades on your paddle to help keep it straight as it's coming around. To make sure it scores, make sure it keeps straight through the whole move. Space Godzilla. It's worth 90 points, and it's an aerial loop with a 90 degree or greater rotation or twist in the middle of the flip. You're just starting just like an air loop and then twisting into a cartwheel halfway through the move. The way I think about it is to stamp down as hard as I can, and I'm almost aiming to hit the bottom here. You want to get lots and lots of pops so you have more time to twist in the air. And then as soon as you go for that jump upwards with your paddle, instead of jumping straight up, I jump up and off to the side a little bit. And then when I will go for the tuck, instead of tucking straight down with both paddle blades like I would do in a loop, I tuck with one paddle blade like I'd go for a cartwheel, and I'm pulling on it as hard as I can to twist the boat in the air. The main thing with this move is make sure you wait long enough so you're actually doing the twist when you're in the air. Don't twist too early, otherwise you'll kill all the pop that you might get. So my key points for scoring the move is make sure you do the twist. And one extra little sneaky way to make sure that you just score this is if you can land it into the front end of a cartwheel, they'll pretty much let you get away with all sorts of mistakes in the first bit of the move. As you're landing, just lean forwards and often that front end will catch and you'll continue into cartwheels. And this means it's much easier to score.
To do a Space Godzilla, set up nice and high on the top of the pile. Then you want to plug as if you're going for a big air loop, and that's key. It's really important you keep your hips square as you go up into that big air loop. But once you're setting off into that big air loop, what you need to be then doing is once your air loop starts, you actually need to throw your body under and round, and that creates that rotation. Then you want to grab the water and bring that boat and land it as flat and as straight upstream as you can. Top tips for scoring them. You need to make sure that you're going into that air loop rotation and then you do the twist. It's very easy to jump and twist too early and then you'll just get an air wheel. So you need to go over vertical and then rotate. Other top tips for the Space Godzilla is you need to land 20-20 straight upstream. So when you land it, land as straight as you possibly can. And that might be into cartwheels or that might be landing flat. Phonics Monkey, left or right, 140 degrees. A pirouette initiated by a crossbow stroke in a front surf position and followed by a front loop in one fluid motion. Okay, so it's a 360 degree spin that starts obviously from flat, but then builds all the way up so it gets more and more vertical and then you can throw it into the front somersault. To do a Phonics Monkey, you want to set yourself up nice and high in the pile. Again, figure out the feature, find out where you want to be. Then what we're looking for is a crossbow initiation. Now if it hurts your shoulders, you're getting it wrong. You want to keep that blade in quite close to the boat. Set yourself up with a little bit of edge, ollie that boat down, so just kind of chop it into the water slightly, and as the boat comes around, you want to grab hold and then load up, and you're loading up for the front somersault to finish. As you come through, make sure that you kind of pull that boat over your head and bring it down as flat as you can. Top tips for scoring. With the pirouette, they're looking for a full 360 degrees, so don't start too late. Make sure you're at least pointing upstream when you start that move. Then what you need to do during that pirouette, it needs to get over 45 degrees, so make sure you don't stay flat. Really bring up that edge as you come round. And then finally, as you throw that somersault, you need to bring it down so that loop is landing as straight as possible.
To initiate the bow, you want to do a crossbow stroke, put a little bit of edge, and you want to start nice and flat and build up to vertical as you're coming around into the front loop position. So the key here is don't go vertical too soon. You want to build up through the whole of the move, ramp it up continuously so you're nice and vertical as you're going back around to forwards again, ready to go into the loop. To finish the loop, make sure you snap your feet out in front of you as aggressively as you can and keep it nice and straight. Tips for scoring: make sure you keep this nice and vertical on the pirouette and make sure you keep it straight on the loop. Panam is worth 110 points and it's an elevated aerial rotation on green water at the vertical angle greater than 90 degrees. It's clear of the foam pile where the competitor rotates around the bow of the boat. So this is just an over vertical blunt. Start nice and high on the green like on all wave moves, get lots of speed coming down, a very aggressive bounce, so really push down with your feet as you go for the bounce here, do a big aggressive edge change, and you want to plant your paddle blade almost underneath the boat for that push stroke. With your head, always look upstream, look to where you want the boat to land, and as soon as you land, start thinking about doing that landing stroke to make sure you don't catch the edge and that you stay on the wave. So you're basically, as you're coming down the wave, you're bouncing and you're throwing your body underneath the boat, pushing down with your paddle, looking where you want the back end to land, and then doing a big powerful backstroke to stay on the wave. To make sure you score this move, make sure it actually does go over vertical and make sure you land it. If you flush afterwards, it's not going to score anything.
Set up for the Panam just as you did the blunt. Get a really nice initiation off the opposite rail, and then when you whip it over, you want to try and get that inside hand as far underneath the boat as you can, which allows the boat to slightly over rotate, and then as you bring it down, get ready for that retaining stroke.
Back Panam. It's worth 130 points and it's an elevated aerial rotation on green water at a vertical angle greater than 90 degrees. It's clear of the foam pile and the competitor rotates around the stern of the boat. The back Panam, start up nice and high in the wave, do a very, very big bounce as aggressively as you can. Then you're throwing your body underneath the boat, pausing a little bit so it actually gets time to go on top of you, and then doing that big stroke to start the rotation. And as soon as you're finishing the move, get ready with that landing stroke to make sure you stay on the wave. Tips for scoring this move is that make sure the boat's actually going inverted. If it doesn't go inverted, they'll just count it like a normal backblunt.
Flip turn, 90 points. Rotation of over 90 degrees at a horizontal angle followed by a rotation with a vertical angle over 45 degrees on the stern in one fluid motion. The boat must be aerial at one point of the move. So the flip turn is the first half of a helix. So you're going to throw that boat inverted and then you're going to snap it back so it's pointing straight back upstream again.
With the flip turn, start nice and high, spin the boat sideways to the oncoming flow, snap your edge on very aggressively, and this will kick the boat up out of the water. And when it's in the air, let it get to backwards. So keep looking upstream through all of the move. Forward stroke so that the back end starts to go down, and then you're going to sort of the back end of a backblunt, ready to do a big landing stroke to keep yourself on the wave. The key to this move is make sure you do a big enough snap so it goes in the air, and make sure you wait long enough that it actually gets backwards before you pull it around again. The Airscrew is worth 140 points, and it's a barrel roll of the boat starting from a front surf position. The boat is aerial for at least 180 degrees of the barrel roll. So ideally with this move you want to start on the hull and land on the hull having done a barrel roll. My main tips for this move is make sure you start the boat nice and straight, bounce as hard as you can, and at the same time as bouncing you want your head and your body and your paddle to be as low to the water as possible. Keep your paddle perpendicular to the flow of the water, and as soon as it's bounced it will start rotating. Don't sit up too soon, let it go all the way around and land on the hull before you sit up. You want to be landing this move whilst you're still lying on the back deck. As soon as you land, do a couple forward strokes to make sure you retain the wave. A Lunar Orbit, or Back Mcnasty, is a 150 point move, at least 180 degree horizontal angle rotation starting in a front surf position and flowing into a back loop or back cartwheel. So the Lunar Orbit is actually just a stern squirt in a hole into a cartwheel or a back loop. Now the easiest way to think about it, you blast up onto the green water, pry the boat into a stern squirt, and then look around ready to see where you want the bow to go and then slam it down into a cartwheel. Now keep it nice and vertical, and after the cartwheel do a backstroke to make sure you retain the hull. Mcnasty or pistol flip. It's a 160 point move, and it's at least 150 degree angle rotation or half a barrel roll flowing into a front aerial loop or space Godzilla.
Start in a back surf or back blast and then rotate the boat round and throw it into an aerial front somersault. So Mcnasty, first thing you need to get into a back blast, so push that boat up onto the green, clear of the foam pile. Then you want to set your paddles up for the rotation, so get your paddles nice and vertical with your front paddle in by your knee. You want to get some edge on that boat, and then as the boat rotates round, you're going to pull on that blade that's in the water, and that creates your pop. As you come towards pointing straight back upstream, that's when you want to throw nice and high with a front somersault, so throw that loop and bring that boat round, landing it flat straight upstream. Tips for scoring the Mcnasty. Make sure you've got the air. That's really important. It actually states that it needs to be an aerial loop, so you need to make sure you get that boat as high out the water as you can. The other things you need to be looked for is you need to land it in a straight loop. So it needs to be within 20 degrees, so as straight upstream as possible.
So to do a Mcnasty, which is the whole version of this move, I start in a side surf, I push the boat into a back blast, about halfway to the back blast I'll drop my upstream blade and start to pull, and at the same time I'll start to put a little bit of edge on. And I'll keep pulling on this stroke and looking around, using both my blades to grab the water and kicking my feet out in front of me to finish in the ending of a loop. The key to this move is make sure you keep that pull stroke in long enough that it goes all the way to forwards before you throw the loop. Make sure you get the loop nice and in the air, and make sure you keep it straight. So as soon as you get to that looping position, you're looking upstream and squaring your body off and kicking your feet out perfectly straight. And this makes sure that the judges will give you this move. The pistol flip is the wave version of this move. So you start up nice and high in the wave, you bounce as hard as you can and throw your body under the water, and you can combine this with a push stroke, and then as soon as you're upside down, you pull on that paddle stroke and you tense all your core muscles to keep it straight and kick your feet out in front of you and land in a front surf.
The Helix, 100 points. A 360 degree spin with at least 180 degrees of which the boat must be inverted. So a Helix is an upside down spin, and you can do them on a wave and in a hole. A Helix is more commonly known in a hole as a Felix. To do a Helix, you want to set yourself up as if you're about to start a spin, so kind of get nice and high on the pile, find out where the stickiest part is and get yourself ready. Then what you want to do is as you come down, you want to start off your spin as normal. Only 180 degrees has to be upside down. So you do your first quarter of a spin, and then you want to flip your boat and switch, so you're switching from your right paddle blade to your left paddle blade, and then you literally roll that boat back up and pull it round the last quarter. Top tips for scoring. Make sure you complete 360 degrees. That's the biggest thing that people miss out on Felixes and Helixes for, is you need to complete that full spin. So when you bring it round, it almost over-rotate it and bring it completely back past that starting point. The other top tips is it needs to be one fluid motion. So when you come back up, make sure you don't go and grab a second paddle stroke, or make sure you don't kind of have a break and then bring it round. It needs to be one fluid circular spin motion. Even though half of it's upside down, it still needs to flow.
The Helix is the wave version of this move, and it's basically an aerial upside down spin on the wave. Now the easiest way to think about it is you set up nice and high on the wave, start coming down the face, turn your boat sideways onto the flow, and you want to skip the boat. So look up at the sky, slam your edge on as aggressively as you can, and the boat will fly up into the air. At this point, you can help the boat with a little bit of a backstroke or sweep stroke, and then when upside down, the boat will be spinning around upside down, so get ready to roll up on the opposite side to the way that you started with. On the ending of the move, do a big forward stroke to make sure you retain the wave, and get ready to make sure you finish the full 360 degree rotation. Tips for scoring this move: make sure it's a full 360 degree rotation and make sure it's one fluid movement, and make sure you retain the feature afterwards. Trophy moves are moves that are currently not on the score sheet. Now to score one of these, you need to explain or show a video of this to the judges prior to the competition so they know what to look out for. You get scored them in 3 different levels: Trophy 1, Trophy 2 and Trophy 3, going from 100 points, 170 points to 200 points. It's a move that isn't on the score sheet. Trophy 1 would be a basic move, Trophy 2 would be an intermediate move, and Trophy 3 would be an expert move. All of them must be moves that don't currently exist. Here's a few examples of moves that would get scored as Trophy 3.
Entry moves. Level 1. Simple entry move, working on one end or wave wheel. The boat must be vertical when it connects with the feature. 30 points. Entry move level 2. 50 points. Intermediate entry move based on a non-aerial basic move. Entry move 3. 80 points. Expert entry move based on an aerial move.
An example of entry 2 would be a kickflip, where you paddle down to the hole, turn your boat sideways onto the foam pile. Just before you lift it, lift the nose up and flip the boat over your head, much like you'd do a Panam. An example of an entry 3 would be an entry loop, where you're hitting the hole drifting downstream, you hit the foam pile as you're vertical and throw it into a big aerial loop.